Ever planned a backpacking trip only to get there and realize it kind of sucks? The trail is barely visible under a tangle of overgrowth. That secluded campsite has 10 other tents packed right next to yours. The waterfall you hiked miles to see, just barely a trickle of water. Yeah, not exactly the adventure you had in mind. Choosing the right trail is key to a great trip, yet many people rely on bad info or just go about it all wrong. In this video, I'll show you how to avoid these mistakes and find the perfect backpacking route. One that fits your style, skill level, and gives you the experience you're actually seeking. Before you even start looking for a trail, you need to get clear about what type of trip you want. First, how long are you going out for? Are you looking for a single overnighter or do you want to go out for multiple nights? That alone is going to narrow down your options. Some trails are ideal for a single night trip like the Narrows in Zion National Park, while others, such as those in Yosemite, offer endless options for multi-night adventures. Next, think about the experience you're after. Do you want big mountain views, a deep forest trek, a route that follows along a river, a secluded backcountry lake? Different trails offer different experiences, and picking one that matches your expectations will make your trip much better. Now let's talk about the camping part. Do you want a designated campsite with fire rings and a picnic table, or would you rather go dispersed camping where you find your own spot out in the backcountry? Designated sites are typically easier to camp in, but often more crowded, while dispersed camping offers solitude and a ton of freedom, but it requires a bit more planning and skill. And then there's a choice between tent camping or hammock camping. If you're in a dense forest with plenty of trees, a hammock can be a great setup if you know how to use one. But if your route's taking you up above the tree line, you better have a ground setup ready. Once you know what you're looking for, it's time to start searching for that perfect route. A lot of people end up picking the wrong trail simply because they didn't do enough research, or they rely too much on a single source. One of the biggest mistakes I see is just trusting AllTrails at face value. AllTrails is great for day hikes, but it's not always as reliable for backpacking. Many trails that are listed as backpacking routes don't have great campsites, reliable water sources, and sometimes they don't even allow overnight camping. Often a trail marked as moderate may feel extremely difficult because of misleading elevation profiles. If you're only using a single app like AllTrails, you might end up on a trail that isn't really suited for multi-day trips. So always cross-check your info. Another mistake is ignoring recent trip reports. A trail that was great last season might be overgrown, washed out, or even closed this year. Conditions can change fast. A river could now be impassable. A wildfire could have burned through part of the route, or a key water source might have dried up. Before you commit to a trail, check recent reports on multiple sources like Gaia GPS, Onyx Backcountry, and local hiking forums. Seasonal changes can turn a trail into a completely different experience. That alpine lake might be beautiful in the summer, but in early June, it could still be covered in ice with sections of the trail buried under snow. In the desert, a trail that's comfortable in the spring could be unbearably hot by midsummer with limited water availability. And then there's elevation gain. A 5-mile hike might sound super easy until you realize it has 3,000 feet of climbing. Before you choose your route, check the elevation profile carefully and compare it to hikes you've done before. Taking the time to research conditions, terrain, and logistics can mean the difference between a smooth adventure and a stressful ordeal. All right, so what's the best way to research a potential route? Start with a few solid resources, but don't rely on just one. I like to start by just Googling backpacking routes in your area. You can often find websites, blog posts, or trip reports about the most popular backpacking routes near your area. Another good place to check is state park and national park websites near your house. And when you're starting this search, be sure to check the permit requirements for the areas you're looking at, because some of the more popular parks might be sold out months in advance. For apps, AllTrails is a good starting point, but other apps like Gaia GPS and Onyx Backcountry are better for backpacking. They show more topographic details, elevation profiles, and often have more accurate trail conditions. Websites like The Dirt are great for finding established campsites, and some national forest websites provide information about where dispersed camping is allowed in more remote locations. And don't overlook local advice. Park rangers, outdoor retailers, and hiking forums can provide real-time insights on the best places to visit, current trail conditions, and sometimes hidden gems you might not hear about otherwise. While finding intel on the most popular backpacking routes is usually pretty easy, sometimes you'll want to avoid the crowds and head out somewhere a bit more remote. In that case, you usually need to dig a bit deeper. First of all, if you're going out somewhere more remote, it's usually best to have some backpacking experience under your belt before you head out. So one of the best ways to uncover lesser known trails is by using satellite imagery and topo maps. Instead of relying on user reviews, zoom in on areas with interesting terrain, ridges, valleys, alpine lakes, or plateaus, and look for faint trails, old logging roads, or unmarked routes. Some of the best backpacking trips aren't heavily advertised because they don't fit neatly into a standard out and back or loop format, but that doesn't mean they aren't incredible. Backpacking forums, Reddit threads, and local Facebook groups can be gold mines for finding these spots. Hikers will often share their favorite under-the-radar routes in smaller communities rather than on mainstream apps. So try searching for trip reports from experienced backpackers rather than just scanning the trail databases. Sometimes these reports will mention trails that aren't listed anywhere else. Another great option is exploring national forests and BLM land, which often have incredible backpacking opportunities with far fewer regulations than national parks. This is one of my favorite ways to go out and find really interesting off-the-radar trips in my area. Many of these areas allow dispersed camping, giving you more freedom to plan your route and choose what you do out in the forest. However, the trade-off is that you'll need to do more planning. The trails might not be as well maintained, water sources can be unreliable, and you won't always find detailed maps or trail signs. But if you're willing to put in some research, finding a truly off-the-radar trail can lead to some of the most rewarding and peaceful backpacking trips you'll ever experience. All right, so you've looked around, you've picked out a few different possible routes. How do you pick the best one? First, start by comparing the key details: elevation gain, mileage, and difficulty. Again, be sure to check recent trail reports from multiple sources to confirm the current conditions. Next, take a look at the water sources that are available along the route. Some trails have year-round dependable water sources, while others may have long dry stretches or water sources that are seasonal and completely dry up in warmer months. Knowing the water availability along the route should be a key part of picking your trail and planning where you're going to camp each night. Also, if you're going with designated campsites, check if any of them have potable water available or if you're going to need to filter everything you drink during your trip. And as you're comparing these routes, keep in mind the logistics of the trail you're considering. Trails that are a loop are super convenient and easy to hike, especially while solo, because you start and end at the same place. But some of the best backpacking trips out there are point to point, which may require a shuttle or having two cars. And if the trail requires a permit, check if it's the type you can get ahead of time or if you'll need to visit a ranger station or a wilderness center on the day your trip begins to pick it up in person. Because that'll impact what time you're able to start on your first day, which may factor into your route selection. Finally, look into the food storage and waste disposal requirements of each route. Does the area require bear canisters or will a proper food hang work? Will you have access to bathrooms or will you need to be digging cat holes out there? Knowing all these details ahead of time can help you identify and narrow down which route best fits your needs and what kind of gear you'll need to bring. So you've done your research, you've narrowed down your options, and you have a trail in mind. Before you fully commit, take a step back and make sure it actually fits your needs. A lot of backpackers, especially beginners, make the mistake of locking in a trail too soon, often after just reading one really positive trip report, only to realize later that they overlooked something important. So ask yourself, is this trail right for me? Your chosen route might look amazing in photos, but does it realistically match your skill level? Trail difficulty ratings can be misleading, especially if you're relying on crowdsourced reviews. If this is your first backpacking trip, a 10-mile day with several thousand feet of elevation gain might be more punishing than you expect. Beyond the difficulty level, make sure to double check the type of terrain. Some trails involve scrambling on rock, possibly with some exposure. Others are more likely to involve harsh weather conditions with little shade or frequent river crossings. Looking at a trail's topographic map can help you visualize what you're getting into before you're out there dealing with it firsthand. And remember, not every trail is the right trail. The key is finding one that matches the experience you're looking for, whether that's a laid-back weekend or a rugged challenge. And if you're looking for some inspiration for your next trip, you can check out some of my own trip reports on my website, StepMassive.com, or you can also check some of my backpacking trip videos here on the channel. So have you ever picked a trail that turned out way different than you expected, for better or for worse? Drop a comment below and let us know what happened. And wherever your next adventure takes you, make it a good one, and I'll see you out there.